Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Miss Wagers again, and we are going to be starting a new story today. This one is in our text collection, and it is called Northwest Coast Peoples. So let's go ahead and get started. Our learning intentions for today. We are learning to identify a text's main idea and details so that way we can better understand what we read. Main idea is one of those important skills that as fourth graders we really have to work on. So we know we're successful when we can identify the main idea of the text and then, of course, identify those key details that explain and support the main idea. For our foundational skills today, we are going to be working on related words. Now, I know you're thinking, Ms. Wagers, what are you talking about, related words? Well, let me explain. Related words, very simply, are just words that have the same base word, so they sound pretty similar to each other. So let me give you an example. We have the words moisture and moisten. Both of those words sound pretty similar and they have similar meanings. Okay, so the word moist, that's our base word. That means slightly wet. You can see that the word moist, M-O-I-S-T, pops up in both of those first two words, moisture and moisten. So moist means slightly wet. Now with moisture, the suffix ure means the condition of being. So for the meaning of moisture, I would say that would mean the condition of being slightly wet. But moisten doesn't have the same suffix. So moisten actually means to make slightly wet. So there's a difference in the meaning of the words. They both mean like slightly wet, but one is the condition of being, and the other one, moisten, would be like to make slightly wet. Like I might say, can you moisten this towel for me? So in the same way, we have another example. We have the water was impure and needed to be purified. So there are two words in this sentence that have the same base word. Can you find them? Yeah, so we have the word impure and then we have the word purified. So they both have that base word of pure, P-U-R. So in the first word, we have impure, so meaning not pure. So we know pure means clean, and the base word im means not. Then we have purified. So we still have the base word of pure, meaning clean, but we have the suffix ify, which means to make, so to make clean. So the water was not clean and needed to be made clean. So that is the meaning of that sentence. So again, you should be able to identify related words that have the same base word. So like in this example, we had the base word of pure. For our vocabulary today, we have the word possessions. And we're going to find this word on page 104. And we see this picture here of this little boy with all kinds of things in front of him. And if we look at the definition, it says, third, since food was easily available, the people had time to spend on producing material goods. Thus, the people of the Northwest Coast were one of the few Native American groups to place importance on acquiring possessions. So what do you think possessions means? Did you say things belonging to someone? Like, these are my possessions? Like your parents might tell you to pick up your stuff, your belongings, that would be your possessions, right? All right, and then we have the word heritage. So what do we think that word means? We have this picture of a tree with all these pictures on it, and it says, the outside of a plank house might be painted with symbols representing a family's heritage. So the heritage is the background from which one comes or which someone comes, okay? So your heritage has a lot to do with like your family, and we've talked about ancestry before, or your ancestors and people that lived before you. So your heritage is a similar word, and it's talking more about the background of like that culture and traditions. That is the heritage. So here are the first two pages of our book, The Northwest Coast Peoples. Kind of cool. Give you a little bit of time to predict and think about what this is going to be all about. So we have land of salmon and cedars. And we do have that vocab word here. And I'm actually going to use the actual book since the words on this page do get kind of small, I know. Here we go. The land of salmon and cedars. Thousands of years ago, humans began to settle along the narrow strip of land that hugs the Pacific coast from what is now southern Alaska to southern Oregon. It was a land of abundance. Fish and sea mammals crowded the ocean. In spring, salmon left their ocean homes to swim up streams where they were easily caught. The nearby forest provided berries, meat, and edible roots. The mild, rainy climates resulted in thick forests of evergreen trees, particularly cedars, which the people used to make shelter, clothing, and transportation. So right now I'm hearing that there are a lot of nice natural resources in this area. It says the social practices of the region differed from those of other Native American groups in 3 major ways. First, it was the only culture in the Americas not influenced by the Maya and Aztec cultures of Central America. Second, the people developed an advanced lifestyle without practicing agriculture or making pottery. So agriculture is farming, y'all. Third, since food was easily available, the people had time to spend on producing material goods. Thus, the people of the Northwest Coast were one of the few Native American groups to place importance on acquiring possessions. So they liked to have things. So our question that we are going to have today is, what details from the text support the idea that geography and climate influence the lifestyle of the people of the Northwest Coast? So let's stop and think. What details in the text support the idea that geography and climate influence the lifestyle of the people of the Northwest Coast? So what did you notice here? Well, first off, it talks a lot about geography in this first paragraph. So it talks about how they are able, in the climate, that they are able to fish because, again, with the geography and the ocean and the rivers, it made it easy for them to catch the salmon. It says the nearby forest provided berries, meat, and edible roots. So again, that was providing them with food. The mild, rainy climate, oh, there's that word climate. And remember, the climate is like the weather. It resulted in thick forest of evergreen trees, particularly cedars, which the people used to make shelter, clothing, and transportation. So again, the climate was helping them to be able to have easy things, to be able to be successful, to make shelters, to have clothing. And then it continues on with saying that since food was easily available, that the people spent most of the time on producing material goods. Therefore, they were one of the few tribes to Native American groups to place an importance on acquiring possessions. So since the climate and the geography was so good to them, that food was easily available. It was easy for them to make shelter. They didn't have to do any farming. That they were able to just focus on making goods, making things for themselves. So I would say that when we're looking at this, all of these details that I listed are showing that the geography and the climate did have an impact on their lifestyle. And on this next page, we just have a few more captions. So it was pointing to the canoes on this previous page right here. So it says, the Native Americans of the Northwest Coast traveled almost everywhere by canoe. Formed from hollowed out cedar logs, canoes were made in different sizes and shapes for different uses. Larger canoes might be used for carrying trade goods, traveling to ceremonies, or raiding other villages. Individual families had smaller general use canoes. So they had canoes that were different sizes. Interesting. All right, village life. And you'll notice that in this story, or in this text, there are a lot of captions, lots of pictures and lots of captions to give us lots of information. So just something to keep in mind as we continue to read. So village life. It says the villages of the Northwest Coast peoples were built on a beach, often where a river or stream flowed into the ocean. A river gave villagers easy access to the inland. The village consisted of one or more rows of wooden houses facing the ocean. Here, the people lived in the fall and winter months. In the spring and summer, however, they moved to temporary dwellings further inland. Remember, temporary means not permanent. There, they hunted and gathered berries and roots to be dried and eaten in the winter. Since they collected enough food in spring and summer to last through the winter, their winter months were spent creating art, telling stories, and feasting at elaborate ceremonies. And again, for our captions here at the bottom, it says, Village houses were made of cedar. A rectangular frame was constructed of logs. The walls were made of planks, so the houses are called plank houses, or sometimes long houses or big houses. The planks were leaned against the frame or tied to it with woven cedar rope. The planks could be easily removed and brought to a family's temporary summer camp, where they were attached to the frame left standing there. The outside of a plank house might be painted with symbols representing the family's heritage. Totem poles might be part of the frame or stand alone in front of a house. This picture shows a Haida village in 1878. So this is an actual village from the 1800s. All right. So here again is one of those examples where we have lots and lots of captions. So let's get started. So right here, it says, in the southern part of the region, people covered the frames of their summer huts with mats woven from reeds or cedar bark rather than planks. All right, now we're going to go right here. Berries, roots, shellfish, and meat were eaten fresh or dried in winter. Fish was the most important food. It was eaten fresh in spring and summer. The excess catch was dried. In winter, dried fish was boiled, steamed, or baked. Fish oil, rich in nutrients, was used as an all-purpose sauce. A favorite winter treat was dried berries in fish oil. I don't know if that sounds like my idea of a good treat. Berries and fish oil. Right, now down here at the bottom. The people of the Northwest traded all along the coast. Some groups even traded inland with inland peoples for raw materials they did not have. Traded goods included dried foods, sea otter skins, carved wooden dishes, canoes, baskets, and blankets. Rare dentalia shells, which are in the picture above, found off the coast of Vancouver Island, were sometimes used as a kind of money. So in this picture, this was sometimes used as their money. Now back to the middle. In the early 1700s, a sudden mudslide buried the Maka village of Ozette. The mud preserved the village much as it was. Between 1970 and 1981, the site was excavated, and that means that they dug it up, bringing to light carved houseboards, baskets, wooden boxes, clothing, cradle boards, mats, hats, looms, toys, equipment for whaling, fishing and sealing, tools, and ceremonial gear. So while this village was completely covered with mud, it was actually also preserved, so they were able to dig it up hundreds of years later, and everything was still there. So that's kind of neat. So now let's learn about family life. And you notice that we do have two stop and think questions. So the first one is, what were the ranks of people within a clan, and what would cause people to move to a different rank? So make sure you're listening for that as I read. Okay, let's go. So family life. People of the Northwest Coast often lived in villages that were divided into two groups called moieties. Each moiety was composed of clans. A village might include 2 to several clans. The members of the clan considered themselves related because they shared the same spirit ancestor. Clans were part of larger groups called phrases. Their primary purpose was to govern marriage rules and provide aid. People from the same clan, moiety or phratis, could not marry. Each clan had 3 ranks of people. Oh, I'm hearing those ranks. Nobles, commoners, and slaves. Nobles were the richest members of the clan. Commoners were respected members of a clan, but they had less wealth than nobles, so they had less money. Families could gain or lose social status by increasing or losing their wealth. Oh, so how could they change? Slaves were captives from other villages. They could not change their status. Usually, several related families lived together in a plank house, which was owned by the wealthiest man. So I heard, what were the ranks of the people within a clan? It was right here in the beginning of the second paragraph. Each clan had 3 ranks of people: nobles, commoners, and slaves. So that was a right there question. You just got to look in the text. And then what would cause people to move to a different rank? It says families could gain or lose social status by increasing or losing their wealth. So that would mean how they could change their rank by increasing their wealth, so kind of like the amount of money they have, but of course they weren't using dollars and cents like us, or losing wealth. Babies were bathed daily, rubbed with whale oil, dusted with willow ash powder, and wrapped in cedar bark diapers. They spent the first year of life in a cradle board, which a mother could strap to her back or lean against a tree while she worked. Since a flat head was considered beautiful and a mark of status, noble and commoner babies had their heads flattened. A board was placed over the forehead and attached to both sides of the cradle board for the first few months of the baby's life. It was not painful. The children of slaves did not have their heads flattened. That's interesting. So they found a flat head to be beautiful. Would you guys consider a flat head, if we have like flat boxy heads, beautiful? And then we have more information about the house. So this picture all put together would be the picture of their plank house. So we'll start at the top. A fire pit in the middle of the house was used for heat and communal cooking. It says a smoke hole in the roof above the fire pit let smoke out of the house and provided some light. Fish were hung to dry in the rafters. So these are fish hanging. All members of a family had specific duties. Women cooked, took care of the house, and gathered shellfish, berries, and roots. Men built houses, made canoes, fished, and hunted. Slaves helped with the work. They were generally not overworked or mistreated. Their main value was as symbols of the family's wealth. The more slaves a family owned, the greater its wealth, and thus the greater its status. So that's one way that they could gain wealth, is to get more slaves. Interesting. It's carved and woven beauty. All right. Like artists everywhere, the people of the Northwest Coast used materials that were readily available to create art. The women excelled at weaving baskets and textiles. The men were skillful wood carvers. So here it says, baskets were made from roots, twigs, and grasses. The materials were gathered and prepared in the summer for weaving in the winter. Roots and twigs were soaked, peeled, and split. Grasses were dried and dyed. Cedar bark and twigs were prized for baskets. Shiny bare grasses and grape roots were often used to create the designs on finished baskets. And it says wool for weaving was shorn from mountain goats and wool dogs, a breed raised by women especially for its thick fur. Chilkat, a division of the Tlingit, women used the wool of the mountain goats to weave blankets that also served as ceremonial robes. Nuksalk women of the Coast Salish group pounded cedar bark strips and wove them into ceremonial aprons, which they decorated with embroidery and beads, and sometimes painted wooden masks. So a canoe was made from a large hollowed out cedar log. The log was partially filled with water. Red hot rocks were placed in the water to make it boil. The boiling water made the wood soft, so the cross pieces of the wood could be added to push out the sides. After the water was removed, the wood dried and became stiff. The canoe could then be decorated. So interesting. So they actually filled it with water to actually make the canoe better. And then some totem. Some totem poles were memorials to the family's history and heritage. Others marked the graves of leaders. A coffin could be placed in a fork at the top, where ashes could be placed in a hidden opening. Sometimes some totem poles were entrances to houses with a hole for people to walk through. Some entrances were carved as ravens' beaks with an arrangement of ropes and pulleys that let them open and close. The top figure in a totem pole represented the major animal associated with the owner's clan. All right, so we have actually finished reading everything for today. I know that one has a lot of captions and lots of little things to read, but it is interesting to learn more about the people of the Northwest Coast. So our focus, remember, today was to identify the main idea. So remember that the main idea of a passage is the most important thing the author wants you to know about a topic. And the key details are facts and examples that support and explain the main idea. So let's look back at page 106 to determine the main idea of that page. Okay, let's do it. So remember, this was the village life page. So just as a quick recap, it said the villagers of the Northwest Coast peoples were built on the beach, often where a river or stream flowed into the ocean. A river gave villagers easy access to the inland. A village consisted of one or more rows of wooden houses facing the ocean. Here, the people lived in the fall and winter months. In the spring and summer, however, they moved to temporary dwellings further inland. There they hunted and gathered berries and roots to be dried and eaten in the winter. Since they collected enough food in the spring and summer to last through the winter, their winter months were spent creating art, telling stories, and feasting at elaborate ceremonies. So we have to think, what do you think the main point of this was? What is the author trying to tell us? So we're going to use that to fill out our main idea and key details graphic organizer. And this is going to be part of your reading response too, is being able to fill this out. So make sure you pay attention. So when I'm thinking about the text, I know it's a lot about, well, they lived on the coast for half of the year and then they lived inland in the spring and summer. So I might say that the village life for the Northwest people was mobile, meaning that they moved around a lot. They didn't just stay in one place. That's what mobile means. So then I want to support that with some details from the text that show that they are able to just kind of move around and do whatever they want. So let's think. So let's see. I remember it said, since that they collected enough food in the spring and summer, in the winter, they could just play games and, do whatever they wanted, really. So that kind of supports, like, they just kind of did what they wanted. So I put the winter months were spent creating art, telling stories, and feasting because, again, they didn't have to really do anything. They had already gone all the places that they needed to, and they had all the food they needed, so they didn't have to go hunt. They just could kind of chill out. Let's see, another detail. I think one that's maybe even better to support it. It says that the river gave them easy access inland. A village consisted of 2 or more rows. Okay, they lived there in the fall and winter months, but in the spring and summer they moved to temporary dwellings further inland. So in the spring and summer they moved further inland, so that way they could hunt and gather food. There we go. And let's do one more. It's one more detail that supports that their life was mobile, that they were able to move just from place to place. Let's see. Well, we already said that they moved further inland, but how could they get there? Oh, wait, because right here it says a river gave them easy access inland. So that would help them to be mobile because they have that river there. So I'm going to use that as my third option. There it is. Okay. My third option is that they have that easy access inland. So for your reading response, I want you to determine the main idea of this paragraph that I've given you here. And then I want you to complete the main idea graphic organizer on the next page. So the main idea graphic organizer looks just like mine. So you're going to put the main idea in this top box and then give me 3 details that support your answer. So this, remember, is the first paragraph that we read, the land of salmon and cedars. So good luck with that. I know you will be amazing. Remember, the main idea is the main thing that a main point that the author wants to get across to us, and then 3 details from the text that support that. Have a wonderful day. Make sure you do all your work. Be kind to one another, and I will see y'all later. Bye.